Okay, so what is the WOC AQ madness really all about? What is us? So what's our format? Our format is that we do a setup and then we ask a large conceptual question. And why we had this kind of format to begin with was that we realized, having taught this for a while, that you can have the kind of question that elicits summary from the text, and you can have, and then we get really upset that students are only summarizing. And then if it's a popular essay which is available online and used widely, then plagiarized also, right? Now, how do you get around that? You get around that by asking a kind of conceptual question that you can't answer by giving a summary. So you can read summaries online, but the work is that you can use that summary to explain to yourself what the text is, but that's not what the answer is asking for. So we turned to this format which said, okay, ask the kind of question which will elicit an analysis. And what did we realize then? We realized a very simple thing, that if the topic of the assignment is same as the topic of the paper they are reading, you will get summary. If the topic of your assignment is different from the topic of your reading, but the reading can be evidence for that, then you will get analysis. So I have a box right there in the middle where it says, what is the difference between these three questions? May I ask one of you to read what is in that box?
What is the difference between these questions? Please use Martin's essay to answer the following questions. How does the language of reproductive biology reflect the inherent gender biases of culture? How can a political awareness of language use change culture? What is power?
Wait, how can a political awareness of language use change culture? Yeah. What is power? All right. So what is the difference between these three questions? Preetha, go ahead.
The first one is a question which is more like a what question. It will allow them to pick up examples from the text into how Martin has done and just write that. However, Martin has exactly done it. Now, the next question is something which goes to one level of abstraction from there. So they are probably going to write the kind of paragraphs we are teaching them to write, but they are still going to depend on exactly the thing that, say, a Martin's analysis. They're going to bring the same thing and they're going to take Martin's quote and Martin's analysis and use it. The third one, because it's a topic which is absolutely not connected to any of the things that Martin is directly talking about, when they try to answer that question, then they have to actually look at how Martin has been doing the work, the way she has been close reading. And something I'm telling my students to now try and close read the sentences that is Martin's voice to see what kind of analysis that they can elicit from it.
Okay, very good. My question here right now is just looking at the questions, how are they different from each other? And the solid answer I'm getting is that the level of abstraction is different in each. That's one. In what other ways are these questions different? Because these are not illegitimate questions. And while teaching Martin, while they are writing an answer on Martin, whatever the question you come up with, they would have actually had to think about all of this, right? And you would have asked all these questions. In the worksheet, maybe which question maybe went in the worksheet, which question maybe comes as an AQ, right? So what are some of the other different, let's just study the questions. What are they allowing us to do? Shayantan.
So the first two questions are how questions, and the third is a what question. So essentially, if I am met with a how question, then I would be looking to figure out a process. So I will say, yes, language of reproductive biology reflects the inherent gender biases of culture by or through dash. Essentially is how my answer would look. But what is power is a what question. So the answer would be power is dash. So, I mean, in the sense that
so don't be deceived by the how and what questions, because look at the first how question. Shayantan, read it out aloud. Read it out aloud.
How does the language of reproductive biology reflect the inherent gender biases of culture? And
okay, just that, right? Yeah. Is that a question Emily Martin asked herself as she wrote the essay? Is that Emily Martin's research question?
That is not.
What is it then?
I mean, Emily Martin's research question is.
It is actually.
It is actually.
huh?
Yeah, it is.
Basically,
exactly.
it is Emily Martin's topic. It is Emily Martin's
Absolutely.
research question.
Oh.
If I ask students this question, what answer can I expect?
They will pick up whatever Emily Martin is saying and paraphrase
Correct.
it.
So this is the kind of question. Now, do they need to know that this is what Emily Martin is asking herself as she does her research? Yes. Right? And they need to recognize that this is a question. Now, if I assign this as an essay topic, what do I expect to get? I expect to get a summary. I will not get anything else.
Yeah.
Right? If I ask this question, and that may be useful for a certain, so a student is having trouble with reading comprehension, or you want students to do reading comprehension in your worksheet as an exercise before the essay question and all of that, this would be a very helpful question to get students to get inside the head of the author, to understand their argument and their evidence from their point of view. Where you want to complete, when we do reading comprehension, we are like, okay, now we understand this, what this author is saying, doing whatever. We are not questioning the author or whatever. We are like, acha, kaise, how are you doing this, right? We are in the essay with the author, with them, and a good piece of essay writing will do that. It will draw the reader in to read the essay with their narrative and their logic. And you come out reading it feeling convinced, हाँ ये तो बिल्कुल ठीक बोला है, right? So then we have to think about, so then how do we step out of that? So then you're getting summary. And the problem is then, why are you writing only summary? So then how to get around that problem? So how about the second question? How can political awareness of language use? I think the problem here is I didn't put a hyphen. Ab theek ho jayega. How can a political awareness of language use change culture? What has happened here?
So I think that the language use changing culture is part of what Martin is talking about, but political awareness needs something more than what she explicitly says. That will require more analysis.
This is not exactly her research question in the way the first one is. But can we read Martin's essay in a way that we can get an answer to the first part, political awareness, right? Though that's not how she frames it. If we read Martin's article, there's plenty of material which talks about, so where is Martin coming from? Why is her reading of the same material different from that of the biologists that are reading it and finding no problem at all? She declares that she comes from a different political awareness position, which is that of the feminist anthropologist. And she says, this is the lens with which I'm looking at the same text that the biologists who are writing it are not. Therefore, they're not seeing it, right? So turns out that the second question, as Preetha rightly pointed out, also increases the level of abstraction, and that abstraction is introduced with this phrase political awareness. And it doesn't say what, the fact that it's feminist, or is it Marxist, or is it deconstructionist? We have not identified any of that, right? Now, depending on the text, this very question could be actually asked of 100 different essays, where it is not Emily Martin, where it is not feminism, where it is some other thing. But can you see this question being asked of other texts? It holds. There's a way in which it holds as a question, even if there is no one single text that we are asking it of, right? So here, and why is that possible? Because the level of abstraction has been increased, and the language use is something that Emily Martin's demonstration is all about language use. And why that is a part of culture, again, that is something we can extrapolate out of Emily Martin, even though Emily Martin, and she's talking about all of this, but then this question lends itself to extrapolation much more than the first question did, right?
There's also a matter of choosing quotes, like not everything in Emily Martin's essay will allow you to answer it.
Correct. So extrapolating which of it you utilize, and that's the function of the class discussion or the other worksheet assignments, pulling out quotes, either after you assign the assignment question or before you have, all of that is there. The point right now here is what has changed between these two questions. So the second question actually leads you a bit more towards analysis than the first one will ever elicit, right? Vasudha, you had your hand up?
No, I just wanted to say that she actually does talk about culture in some places explicitly,
does.
but not about political awarenesses.
Correct, correct. So what I'm saying is that from the first to the second, amount of abstraction has changed. You can find material for all of this in Martin's essay, but there is scope that this will have less summary than the first one will. And we agree with that, right? What about the third question? What has happened there?
So, I mean, the third question is rather broad. So, which means essentially students will have to, I mean, to answer what is power, they'll actually, so for example, neither of the four texts that we have taught address what is power, but they use, I mean, they do look at power as a paradigm once in a while, but they're not addressing power. So, students will really have to analyze and extrapolate and possibly connect, find out similarities between two texts or contrasts between two texts to be able to come up with a good definition of power.
So this is like the most abstract question possible, not just for this course and this tiny box, but world, right? So unless you've assigned a Foucault text which is explicitly talking about what power is, basically what you are saying is that or an essay which is discussing what power is. Again, if it's an essay that is discussing power and you ask what is power, you will get summary. But if you ask what is power in this context, and again, none of this is happening without discussion, none of this is happening without paying attention to specific parts of the text. My question here is this question, can this question be answered by using Emily Martin as evidence? Can we read Emily Martin in order to answer the question, what is power?
Yes.
Yes. Now, if we can, of course, this is then, if this is the type of question we are going to ask, then our instruction, how they have read, what are the parts of the essay that they have paid attention to, we have to make sure that all of that is done, right? Now, again, going back to the method of AQ, then the way we set it up is we realize that if we want to beat the problem of students are only writing summaries, and that too half the time they're just copying it from the internet, one way to do that is to do exactly this, is to ask the question which is not the same as the topic of the author, even though that is a question they ought to be able to answer. If they can't answer question 3 if they've not understood and are not able to answer question 1 or question 2 for that matter, right? So asking these broad conceptual questions, but limiting them to a text where that is not the topic of their essay will elicit analysis. So this was the reason why we came up with this method of asking this kind of a broad abstract question, right? So this is the logic of the drawing board, right? So, okay, so the logic here is we ask a question that's not the same topic or the same research question as the other. Turns out it's kind of hard to do with one text, because when we are reading one text and getting into it and close reading and deep reading, we get into the narrative and the logic of the writer. And quite often then the questions we come out asking, we end up getting converted for a while. We are thinking like Emily Martin. Emily Martin seems like, that's the way to look at this material and ask these questions. Very hard to step out of that, right? It's hard for us to ask these questions. It's hard for students to get out of not thinking about gender, language, politics, power in the way exactly as Martin is doing. So we also found that asking students these broad questions, not in the context of one essay, but more than one essay, actually makes it a little easier to step out of the narrative of the author, because it's very good writing will get you to begin to think like that author, right? How do you pull yourself out? You pull yourself out, you read something else, and then basically there are two essays, and both essays, and so it becomes challenging for the instructor. And this is what makes the AQ really, really hard, right? So to have more than one text actually, but this is a logic. It helps you step out of the logic and narrative of the text that we are reading. right? So even if you have to ask what is power, and we have only one essay, Emily Martin, for it, we can only get one set of answer with nothing else to offset it, right? So even then, if we have to answer what is power, it will be an extrapolation of how Emily Martin understands what power is. You have no other material to set that up, against, right? So we found that, and that's the reason why right after the very first step, but it's possible to do with a single text also. After that, we try and get students to answer a question with the help of more than one source. Now, whether we are giving them, remember, even in the orientation, teacher, I never use more than one or more than two, maximum three. I never say use 4 sources or 1 paragraph. I never say that. Why? Because it's also not a matter of, okay, we'll come to why not. But this logic here, that why do we have more than one text? It makes you step out of the narrative of a single author's logic. So now I'd like you to read the question which is in the second box. May I ask one of you to do it, please?
Please use Martin, Vedic, and V. Gita et al. To answer the following question. What is the lure of heroes?
What do you think? What has happened here?
So for this, I think, at least if I was asked this question, my mind would immediately go to finding heroes, or the use of heroes in the 3 texts that you've mentioned.
Very good. Okay, in Martin, are there heroes in Martin?
Yeah, at least.
Are there heroes in Vedic?
Yeah.
Are there heroes in Vigita?
Yeah.
Are they the same heroes?
No.
Are they from the same culture?
No.
So what you have is basically a representation. And are these essays about heroes?
No.
No, they're not. Right? But turns out each of these, so the problem that we have with what is power and only Emily Martin is we get only, now we can ask what is power using Martin and Vedic. That's possible. It would hold there as well. And you would have 2 very different formulations of what power means in 2 different contexts. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to complicate your understanding of power, which if you're doing only with one source, you can't. Right? So what is the lure of heroes will make you first see, well, are there heroes? Yes, there is. Are the heroes topic of these essays? No, they are not. So what is the kind of essay that you can expect to get from a question like this? And what you will get by the end of it is hopefully a complicated understanding of heroes. Because again, the idea of a hero is like so archetypal, it's just naturalized that there will be heroes, right? But this allows you to examine the category of hero. And because you have more than one type and context, you don't have to take any one reading's understanding of that process as the only way in which happens. You can set off different readings and say, okay, so, this might be the motivational lure in this context, but actually it's something else here. And if you look about that, then what can we say about the process, right? So, so what's the, again, now notice this is not a how question, but would this require you to think about process?
Yes.
Right? So turns out in the past, we have made a very simplistic distinction that what makes you get to information and how makes you get to process. And that's not wrong. That's not incorrect. But these questions, the way they are framed are quite agile and they change the function of the interrogative word depending on how you have framed it. And it's not necessary that even though the question is what is the lure of heroes, an essay written in response to that would be only, one pat, uncomplicated answer, right? So this is one of the things, again, as experienced teachers, I'm going to now invite you to reflect a little bit more on how we are asking questions and what we are doing with them. And questions can be very deceptive. Even if it's a how question, it can be a very straightforward summary type thing. And even if it's a what question, it can be a conceptual one. Make sense? Any questions so far? So what's the broad idea? The broad reason why we set up the AQs that we do in the way that we do is to not think like and reproduce arguments, which is summary, and we do want them to do that. We do want students to learn how to do that. But in the academic essay, and this there is some agreement on across the world, that if you are writing an academic essay, the idea there is, and remember the tiny 1500 word academic essay is the template for the PhD thesis, for the book, for the journal article. What we are teaching them to do here are things that essentially also go into that kind of work, right? What you're doing there is not different from what you're learning to do here, right? So then what is it that we want students to do? We want them to think with Martin and Vedic and Gita et al. And learn to apply or use their logic or argument to a topic of our own. So I'm writing about heroes, right? I'm not writing about reproduction. I'm not writing about, revolutionaries in the nationalist movement, right? But I am thinking about heroes, and I have 4 examples. Now, what can I say about heroes having studied these examples closely? Make sense? So this, what I've hoped to do is unpack the logic for why we are writing the assignment questions in the way that we do.